All right, calling to order the steering committee for December 7th. First thing I want to do is I want to read a statement. The meeting of the steering committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in the light of the coronavirus. Have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
Yes, I have a motion, I have a second. This also will be attendance call as well. Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes. Next on our agenda is approved minutes. I'd like to call on Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I've read through those minutes. I didn't find any problems with it. I move that they be approved as read.
I have a motion, I have a second. I have a second, Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes. Before I get started, I want to give some numbers on some things that I'm extremely passionate about. And there's some people in here that's going to be applying for boards as well as a very important position of county commissioner. So one of the things that I have always, and I don't want to say champion, but I'm definitely passionate about is the opioid drug epidemic and suicides that we have in this county. And a lot of people don't understand, not a lot of people don't pay as much attention to it, especially with COVID. But I want to give you some numbers. And so that as county commissioners, whether you get this position or not, that you do continue to serve this community to keep these numbers in mind. 2019 to 2020, we had 873 overdoses. We had 86 deaths and 46 suicides. From January 1st until December 7th, we've had 802 overdoses, 114 deaths, and 49 suicides with 23 days to go. So these numbers are alarmingly going up. And so, as chairman, this is one of the things that I've always done before my meetings, and I hope that I reach someone's ear, because I'm going to continue to try. Next thing on the agenda is I have the County Commission District 6. I'm moving that till the end so that we can spend most of our time on that. So we're going to go to fill in 3 vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board for 2-year terms. We had 2 applicants. We have a reappointment of Cindy Ayers, and we have a Commissioner, Pettis Reed. Commissioner Reed, would you like to say anything?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know about addressing this group right here. They know me too well. Mr. Chairman, I would consider it an honor to serve on this committee. My life has been based around agriculture. That's where my college degree comes from, which I received at Middle Tennessee State University. I come from a farm west of here, out in the Rockville area, and I look forward to serving on this committee if I get that opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Y'all can give me a raise of hands. Did y'all hear my opening statement? Okay, thank you. I had my microphone off. We have 2 people that applied. We have one for farmwoman reappointment, and we have one for county commissioner. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion, Commissioner Rather.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Johnson. We'll be voting for both these applicants to move forward to the commission. Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner McAdoo, yes. Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
And pass on myself.
correct. Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes, congratulations. Our next line on our agenda is fill the vacancy of the Conservation Board, term to expire 2024. We had 3 applicants, Howard Jones, Tom Beckwith, and William Tollett. Are all 3 here? Is there anyone, is any of these 3 here? None? Okay. Gentlemen, you had their applications on your iPads. We'll need a motion for one.
Motion to consider all 3 and vote for 1.
Do I have a second? I have a second. All right, we have a motion. We'll be voting for 1. Is that correct, Commissioner? We'll be voting for 1. So we'll call roll, and then you tell who you would like to be recommend on this Conservation Board.
Commissioner Reed,
William Tollett.
Commissioner Cush,
Beckwith.
Commissioner Stevens,
Beckwith.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Mr. Jones.
Commissioner Johnson,
Howard Jones.
Chairman Harris.
I vote for Howard Jones. Should be 4-2-1.
Yes, 421 Jones.
Okay. Mr. Jones is recommended by the Steering Committee for Conservation Board to go before the County Commission for a full vote. Also, let me remind, anybody can come to the County Commission and be nominated as well to be on there. Our next item is fill 2 vacancies with the Correctional Work Center. We have 2 applicants for reappointment, Thomas Hartley and David Puckett. Do I have a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve both for the 2 vacancies by acclamation.
Motion, do I have a second? I have a second, Commissioner Rather.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes. Okay, next on our agenda is a program called Chef to Table. This is led by Marcel Hernandez, and what this is, it specializes in areas of education, improving attendance and performance, juvenile justice, helps eliminate truancy. So, are you on, Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to commissioners and committee members, as well as Mayor Ketron and Ms. Rachel for facilitating today's meeting. I know you all have a potentially lengthy agenda, so I will be brief. My name is Marcel Hernandez. I'm the founder and executive director of Be
Mr.
About
Hernandez,
Change.
we cannot hear
Yes.
you, so can you get closer to your microphone? Turn your volume up?
Oh, is that better?
No.
Okay. I've got my volume all the way up.
There you go. Go ahead. We're good.
Okay. I was saying thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, commissioners, for today's opportunity. My name is Marcel Hernandez, Executive Director, founder of Be About Change. We are a nonprofit 501c3 based out of the Middle Tennessee area, and we work primarily to reduce youth recidivism, as well as increase attendance in middle school and high school. And this year we were given the opportunity to launch Chef to Table, which is a program that connects families in need, families who have endured hardship directly from COVID-19, with food, resources, as well as live and video instruction from our chef partner. Currently, it's a 4-week program in Davidson County. And in speaking with surrounding residents, surrounding counties, we've obviously learned that there's a greater need in some of the surrounding areas for this type of program. When we had our brief meeting with Mayor Ketron, it was probably maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, he was talking about primarily hardship with residents as well as small businesses, which I think is obviously a fairly common challenge across our country. And we thought it would be good to reach out to surrounding counties such as Rutherford County. Had a brief email exchange with Chairman Terry, and also via that connection, he connected us with your office. And so wanted to come talk a little bit about that program. Essentially, through these food boxes, we help to train families to utilize food efficiently. The common example that I use is, say, for example, you pick up a pork shoulder at the store, and then you braise that, so you cook it, and you can portion it out and ultimately prepare it over time in different ways so that you're not just tired of the pulled pork sandwiches or the different more common ways of eating it. Our chef helps with that area. And we also provide families with a set of kitchenware that obviously they keep and they utilize to prepare these various meals using budget-friendly, time-efficient methods and ingredients. And that's why I wanted to reach out with and have a brief conversation with you all today. And the most common question that we get is, how much does it cost? With our current grant, there's an initial setup for each family, for each household, let's say. It ranges anywhere from $125 to $150, which includes the kitchenware. And then beyond that, we are currently at a price point of right around $6 per meal with the members and in the households, or excuse me, in the houses. And so we're looking at positively impacting families across Tennessee. And when we look at similar programs such as Blue Apron or HelloFresh, Blue Apron is a little bit on the higher end. Some of you are probably familiar with that. Those are right around $9 or $10 per meal, whereas HelloFresh is right around the $5 mark, depending upon the seasonal promotion that you may get in your email inbox or whatever it might be. So right at the $6 price point, we feel that we're competitive with these types of services, but also, of course, we focus primarily on the families that are affected through COVID-19 or by COVID-19, which usually winds up being either a job loss or a reduction in hours, loss of housing. Those are the three common things. Which usually winds up being either a job loss or a reduction in hours. And essentially say, we know there's a need, and if you all would be willing to partner with us, we have the bandwidth for expansion, and we would be open and able and willing to make a commitment with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Appreciate it. Is there any questions for Mr. Hernandez? Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Mr. Hernandez, as previously stated, made contact with the mayor's office about a week or two ago at the request of Representative Brian Terry. They had discussion, and so he sent him our way. Tonight's presentation by Mr. Hernandez was for information only. And Mr. Hernandez, how we work is there's no money basically that's been appropriated for anything like this. We do have a process that our not-for-profits go through, and they will make a submission to the mayor's office prior to us starting our process of the budget and that will start probably about mid-February. We'll start taking to each department, talking to them, and then all of the not-for-profits, the 501c3s, will send in the submissions. They'll come to the mayor's office. I'll make a recommendation to the budget committee, and then the budget committee, and then ultimately the full commission before we set the final tax rate at the end of June. Will approve or disapprove all of those requests from our not-for-profits and on that list. And we have quite a few that are on that list, and the need continues to grow. And it sounds like what you and your guys are doing are phenomenal work, and there is such a need with people losing their homes and people living on the streets. We're seeing more and more of that, and being able to provide food and nourishment to those that are falling on hard times or less fortunate. So that would be our process. We wouldn't be able to enter into any contract of entering into would probably, this would be the committee that it comes to, and that's why I told you to come to this committee. But after doing more research, we usually don't sign contracts to do business. We just make allocations one time. You come back and get more allocations the next year, and it renews and continues from there. Nick, did I miss anything from a legal standpoint? Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions that I can answer for you or any of the committee members?
No, Mr. Hernandez, we have no more questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Gentlemen, you have a list of litigations on your iPads. Is there any questions? All right, we'll move on. I had skipped one. I do apologize. The ad hoc committee. We had met last month, the ad hoc committee, on the issue of guns, allowing employees to carry guns in county buildings. That consisted of the sheriff, the mayor, Chris Clark, who's our public safety director, Ed Elam, our risk management, Sonia Henderson from Stevenson from Human Resources, and our county attorney, Nick Christensen. After discussing this with all participants, we feel that the policy that we have in hand now is the one that we're going to stay with. The ad hoc committee is proposing that we keep the policy intact, and that two things that came out of this that I was pretty excited about is, number one is Chris Clark and Sonia Stevenson will be creating a safety program that will be introduced, and she'll be able to go more into that as Chris as well, to help us on any type of on-site shooting or safety precautions there. And the second thing that we looked at was to have armed guards for the county clerk's office and this mayor and trustee's office. We advised and asked that the mayor, Chris Clark, as well as the sheriff, get numbers together to see what it would cost if it'd be able to be put in our next budget. Is there any questions? None? Well, let's move on. All right, gentlemen, we come to the main event. Fill the vacancy of District 6 County Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
do you want to go ahead with the litigation list?
Is there any questions on litigation? None? Okay. You good? All right, let's go. We're going to go to the County Commission. And let me kind of explain to you the format so that we're all understanding everything. Number one, we're going to allow you to come up and speak for 5 minutes. And then we'll have questions for you. We will also, if there's a motion to go with 3, then we might have more questions. But right now, we have 5 minutes, and then we're going to be asking questions. So tell us who you are, and tell us what you believe in, and any experience that you have in government. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So it is as followed. The first one will be Jonathan Beverly. Second will be Veronica Buchanan. Third will be Paul Krebs. Fourth will be Michael Curtis. Fifth will be Casey Gregory. Sixth will be Greg Harvey. Seventh will be Timothy Holden. And John Miller will be the last one. So I also sent an email out to all you to the 4 questions that I will be asking, but there will be other questions by these other committee members. So, Mr. Beverly, if you're here.
Mr. Chairman, question as Mr. Beverly comes up. Are we holding our questions until all 8 have given their bio, or are we going to ask individual questions as each individual is at the podium?
Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to let him speak, and then we'll ask questions. And then we'll do that for each one. So, Mr. Beverly, welcome. Appreciate your coming forward and your service to this county. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you today. This is a position that's very near and dear to me, as it represents where my family is going to be raised, where my children will go to school, and where we will see generations to come, and I want to be a part of that. My name is Jonathan Beverly. I want to take a moment to recognize my wife, Amanda. She's in the galley as well. I was educated in Rutherford County. I went to school at Smyrna High School, graduated in 2010. I graduated from MTSU in 2013 with a degree in criminal justice and minor in accounting. And I got my master's degree from Bethel University in McKenzie, Tennessee in 2016. I've been a police officer with the town of Smyrna since 2013. There, I currently train new police recruits as they go out into our community and continue to serve. In addition to that, I own my own business. I know what it's like to have to make a payroll, to have to make decisions that will affect how you continue to operate and how it will affect other people. My wife and I moved to District 6 because we wanted a place to raise our family. We wanted stability. We wanted them to have a place to call home, and we wanted to raise our family in the same home as they grew up. I currently serve as the Fraternal Order of Police President for the Stones River Lodge in Smyrna. We represent 100 police officers, and I've done so since 2016 in that position. I served on the North Rutherford YMCA Board of Directors for 7 years. I currently serve on the Boys and Girls Club Board of Directors, in addition to being a member of the Smyrna Rotary Club, and I also serve on that Board of Directors as well. I have experience in governmental management and budget, both at the law enforcement side, but also seeing how it operates with purchasing committees, contract bids, requests for RFIs or requests for informations, and requests for proposals. And I hope to use that knowledge and experience along with my education background and practical knowledge to serve the citizens of District 6. Sir, that's all I have.
Okay.
I use my time.
Well, let's go ahead and I'll ask a question that I wanted to know a lot about is what are the biggest issues and challenges facing Rutherford County?
Well, our biggest issues facing Rutherford County, in my opinion, are our infrastructure, our education, and then our workforce development. And we have to continue to develop a plan that is that we are able to sustain for generations to come, and I have options I would like to recommend on that.
Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. In regard to infrastructure, sustainable roads, solid waste, and planning. Solid waste being the most crucial as it is quickly approaching a decision time. Education, we have to have an attractive school district that empowers students. We are able to retain teachers and continue to anticipate for the next generation. And then lastly, workforce development. An insulated and diverse economy in Rutherford County is going to protect us when the next downturn does occur. We have to work closely with our state delegation our local municipalities, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Industrial Development Board to make sure that we are attracting quality businesses to come into Rutherford County with high-paying jobs that develop our infrastructure, assist us with education opportunities and funding, and provide for jobs for families to move and reside into our county.
Any questions? Commissioner Cush?
Thank you, Mr. Beverly. Well done, and thank you for your civic duty, by the way. Two questions. How long have you lived in District 6?
I've lived in District 6 just about 9 months. My wife and I got married in July, but prior to that, we decided to purchase a home in District 6, and we moved in February of this year.
Okay. I have a political question. You would be replacing a longtime Republican that is in a heavily Republican district. May I ask your political, are you a Democrat, Republican, or an independent?
I'm registered with the Rutherford County GOP party, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear that. What'd you say?
I'm registered with the Rutherford County GOP party.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Reed?
Mr. Beverly, I know you're a police officer, so this question right here shouldn't be all that hard for you that I'm getting into. If you're selected, I become your next door neighbor as far as a commissioner. I'm District 8, but our districts run alongside each other. I currently have the largest district as far as area with 132 square miles, but that district that we're talking about right here is 126 square miles, I believe, somewhere within that neighborhood. It has a lot of rural area in it, and it's a lot of area that you'll have to learn to know where it is. My question is, what are your concerns for public safety in that area? Because you're dealing with a volunteer fire department in that area. As far as Christiana is concerned, as far as the Buchanan area out there, Kittrell serves that, but you also have the Rutherford County Fire Department that comes within that area. But I noticed you mentioned infrastructure. I consider public safety to be a part of that infrastructure too. What are your concerns would be for that area that would become your district?
Well, sir, I share in that concern. You know, the Sheriff's Department is a large portion of our budget. They handle a variety of functions in addition to Rutherford County EMS and our fire department. We have to work to make sure that we're maintaining efficiency, but that they have the tools to do their job effectively. You know, one thing that I like about Rutherford County is we're considering the Hazmat Emergency Preparedness Grant that's going to match our local funds. Every 20 cents we raise, they're going to match 80 cents. That goes hand in hand with our medical examiner lab grant that we've already been awarded $170,000 for equipment, supplies, and training. Public safety is of the utmost importance. Those funds and grants can work together to build the public safety buildings to help reduce response times to our district that is extremely rural. We have the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant, the pre-disaster mitigation that can help us get ahead of any disaster before it strikes. We improve our response times, and I speak on the opioid crisis. I've been on the front lines of that. I've been the person doing CPR. I've been the person waiting on the ambulance, hoping and praying that we're able to save someone's life. I can only imagine what the possibility would be like for response times in a rural district such as mine, and I feel it is my duty to make sure that the constituents of my district are well represented when it comes to public safety, and that their concerns and the dangers that go with that are represented.
Anybody else? Mr. Beverly, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, Veronica Buchanan. Welcome, Ms. Buchanan. You're recognized.
Hello, I'm Veronica Buchanan, and I'm a lifelong resident of Rutherford County and of District 6. I've got 2 kids. I'm a grandmother, and I'm nervous. Let me take it, and I'm very familiar with this floor. So let me take a minute and take a deep breath. But I have a husband and 2 kids. This position I ran for back in 2018. I put my time, my money, my effort, and all my interest into it. I'm experienced because I've been on Planning Commission, Risk Management, I've been on BZA, I've been on Ethics Committee, on and on, redistricting, on and on. But I'm here to serve because I'm a servant at heart. I trust my county, that's why I'm here to serve. I want to be transparent with everybody. I don't want to just distinguish out different parties. I want to be here for them, for everybody, not only District 6, but the entire county. Thank you.
Is there any questions? I will ask one. Ms. Buchanan, how do you feel about the diversity of Rutherford County?
The past two mayors I've conversed about this. We don't have enough diversity here. We really don't. I know Vicki, God rest her soul, she had asked me why don't more minorities apply. And I told her a lot of them just don't want to go through the RIF, you know, the different things that they have to go through here. So I think we need more diversity.
Very good. And what do you feel that are the most important issues facing this county?
Oh, thank you. I think growth, I think the landfill, and I think education. Growth because it's stated in 2035, our county is on schedule to be 50%, we're going to increase 50%. The landfill is at capacity, and we need to develop a plan to try to get that, and I would love to work with all the different leaders and fellow commissioners to try to hash out a plan for the landfill. I know that we're already doing the RFPs. I do understand that. And education is taking 75% of our budget, which I think we could, you know, develop a better plan for that. So those are the three.
Any other questions? Commissioner Reed.
Ms. Buchanan, I can understand your nervousness of facing this crowd. I've had to face them myself so many times. But let me ask you a question. You've already heard the question that I did ask Mr. Beverly there concerning the law enforcement and concerning just public safety in general out in that district. And you living there for all your life, I think you would probably have a good understanding of what more we are needing as far as public safety is concerned for that rural area of what is located out there and what we're needing. I know you served on the planning and what we're having going on there. So I think you were even involved when we dealt with some of the zoning and things of this type that they work doing that way. So you understand.
I helped on the comprehensive plan, yes, sir.
Yeah, you was on the comprehensive plan. I remember that too. What are your thoughts in that area for the people out that way?
Well, I think if we sit down and have a powwow with our sheriff to kind of hash out the areas of concerns and then go from there. But my concerns are more patrolling out there, because the areas, I mean, from what I'm hearing, we don't have enough police out there. And in my area, I see a police probably every now and then over where I live at. But I think we need better patrolling. And now since the pandemic is here, a lot of people, you know, they stay in and they're not out wandering like they should. But I think we need better patrolling. That's my opinion.
Mr. Cush?
Thank you. Ms. Buchanan, I do not want to ask you or divulge your age here, but you say you have spent your entire life in District 6?
Yes, I'm 54.
Well, you said that, not me. So you are truly entrenched in District 6, and that has been your home your entire life? Yes, sir. Okay. And I do want to remind folks that you did run for this District 6 Commission seat at the last cycle. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were a viable candidate, as I recall, up until approximately a week before the election. And I believe the Republican Party decided at the last minute you weren't Republican enough to fulfill so they pulled your application. And so I'm going from memory, so you feel free to correct me where I may be misspeaking.
That's correct.
But for up until a week prior, you were actively campaigning. You filled out your 50 signatures, you campaigned, you planted signs, you went door to door. You were an active campaigner for this position.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But like I said, the Republican Party decided a week before the election that you weren't quite Republican enough. But you are currently a member of the Republican Party.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I will say, I did enjoy working with you in the Planning Commission. You were very diligent and open-minded and reasonable with the things that come before the Planning Commission, and think you would be a great asset to the as a commission member.
Any other questions? Commissioner Rather?
I meant to ask Mr. Beverly this, and I will assume that his answer is yes. During the next election, do you intend to run
Yes,
for
sir.
that seat? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Let me, are you done, Ms. Buchanan? Is everybody good? All right, thank you, Ms. Buchanan. Mr. Beverly, could you step up, please? I want to make sure that I'm fair with everybody. So the question to Ms. Buchanan was, are you planning on running in the next election?
Yes, sir, I do intend on running in the next election.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next is Paul Cripps. Welcome, Mr. Cripps. You're recognized.
Commissioners, Chair Harris, Mayor Ketron, I've lived in Rutherford County all of my life except for the time that I served in the military. Graduated Smyrna High School in 1987. Of course, we'd like to tell everybody, you know, we're from the old school. People that graduated there understand that. I joined at the age of 17 because my grandfather was the only other member in our family that had served, and I was the first generation since him to serve, so I signed up. My parents signed to let me enlist early. Graduated and went off. I served my country for 10 years. I was in during the first Gulf War, Desert Storm. After being in for 10 years, I made the decision to get out. As I was getting out, transitioning into civilian life, went through the police academy and was in the police community for a few years there. After being gone from Rutherford County, missing the hills of Tennessee and the trees that are taller than the live oaks down in South Texas down there, I decided to move back to Rutherford County. And that's where my family has lived their entire life, and that's where I chose to return back to. Lived over off of the Cason Lane side of town. It seemed to get a little congested over there, so my wife and I decided to move over to the Church Street side, which is in District 6. We've lived where we're at now for just over 15 years. I've owned my own business for 10 years in Rutherford County, so I kind of know what it's like to have to work on a budget and to have to make the ends meet and to not live beyond my means. You know, I believe that Rutherford County was where I wanted to return to as well as retire. I've got 4 children, the last of which is still living at home, going to high school here in Rutherford County, and she's going to be moving out into college and on into the workforce, and I feel that this is my opportunity to not only serve in the military, but to also serve my community and try to make a better place for her and my future grandchildren to live in this district. I'm entering this with the same approach that I've taken of every leadership position that I've ever had in the military, in my church community, and other things. I'm approaching this as a servant leader. I believe that any leader is put in that position not as a figurehead, but as a servant to those that put him there, and that's the citizens of District 6. The things that are important to me is the growth of Rutherford County. In 2020, just crossing over 300,000. We've increased over 100,000 in the last 20 years, and with the growth of the people coming into Rutherford County, as well as thanks to the mayor bringing newer businesses into Rutherford County, such as Amazon, Mitsubishi, and others. It's only going to grow even farther. So the things that were previously mentioned, like infrastructure, landfill, and education, those are all multifaceted parts of the growth of our county. And the way I look at that is each one of those, we've got to get ahead of that and look into the future. We have to take care of today, but we also have to be forward-looking and think about the future and where we're going to be, in the coming years.
Good. All right. I will ask you, as I asked Ms. Buchanan, do you feel that Rutherford County lacks in diversity?
Well, diversity is, to me, is very important, because we have to make sure that we're reaching out to all those who are qualified to whatever it is that they're striving to do. If an applicant for a job is qualified, I believe they ought to be moved into that position if they're so qualified. Other things, community outreach programs. To me, I've served on outreach ministries in my church. Those who we outreach to are transparent. It's not about the color or the race or the ethnicity of that person. It's the fact that we're here to help those in need. Diversity is, to me, those that are in need are the ones that need the help, irregardless of race, color, creed, sex, religion, any of those things.
Good. Gentlemen?
It's my same question. How long have...
Yeah, we'll stop with Mr. Cush just for a second. Sure. Mr. Bevel, I will allow you to come back up here after this is over to answer that question. Ms. Buchanan, I'm a little nervous too. So I'm making a few mistakes as I am, so apologize to all y'all for the mistakes I'm making. I'm going off the cuff right here, so there's questions going through my mind. So if I do ask a question, I want to make sure everybody gets to answer the same question. All right? Commissioner Cush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Crisp.
Yes, sir.
How long have you lived in District 6?
I've lived in District 6 for 15 years, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Reed.
You say you have lived in your district 15 years.
Yes, sir.
So I would say you're fairly familiar with that district, where all it covers, where it goes.
Yes, sir. We make sure that we attend the Moon Pie Festival down in Bell Buckle every year. We make it down to the antique shops down toward Shelbyville, toward the border down there. We're familiar with Christiana because my daughter went to middle school there and supported the Cougars as part of their community there.
Have you made a chili supper at the fire hall there in Christiana?
No, sir, I can't say that I've made the chili supper.
Because that's where my questions are going. What do you see about the public safety as far as that district is concerned? Because that is a large area. That's a lot of square miles that we have to look after for our ambulance service, for our sheriff, as far as our fire departments are concerned.
Yes, sir, and that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked. Looking at the population growth that we've experienced in the last 20 years, going from 200,000 in 2000 to over 336,000 in 2020, or actually in 2019 officially is when that was put. I don't know how popular it is, but I think that as we increase in population, it was kind of floated a few years back about Rutherford County potentially going metro. Being in the law enforcement community, I know how hard it is. Where I was at down in South Texas was extremely rural. The one town had 5,000 and the adjoining town only had 12,000. So we found ourselves kind of sharing in the patrol efforts. You know, if somebody was out sick or a call was made that required, you know, more presence than normal. But I really feel that maybe at some point in the future, looking at a metro where we would have precincts stationed out throughout the county and a shared expense as far as the number of officers and EMT and firefighters that would be in each area to reduce the call time, you know, to a more reasonable amount of time. I myself have been on a call as a reserve officer down in South Texas to where we were required to also go through first responder training because it may be an extended period of time before a first responder, EMT or ambulance or firefighter was able to respond to that. So I understand how important that is. So I would be open to looking at some point in the future to maybe a metro where we would have precincts throughout the county.
Commissioner Rather?
Same question. I know things changed because campaigning is a little ways off, but do you
Yes, sir.
intend to run for this office?
Yes, sir. Actually, that question was asked to me by someone earlier. Being former military, I carry to this day our core values that we had in the service: honor, courage, and commitment. You know, I am not going to let anything ever become that would cause my honor to be in question. I'm going to make sure I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to do the responsible thing. Courage is what I'm doing right now, is being willing to step up and step out and put myself in a position to be available to serve my community. To answer your question more specifically, is the third item on that list is commitment. Once I set, you know, to a project or a task, it's not just a whim, it's something that I look forward to completing. And as far as completing is when I'm ready to step down. So yes, to answer your question, I would consider, or yes, I would run in the next election to continue my service.
Commissioner Cush?
Thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you, Mr. Crisp. Two quick questions. You're currently employed at Allegheny Millwork,
Yes, sir.
right? And prior to that, you were a trooper. Is that how I read this application? Were you in?
No, sir. One of my references is Trooper Pollard
Okay.
with the THP.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Prior to Allegheny, what was your employment?
I worked for a company out of White House, Tennessee called Tate Ornamental Metals.
Okay.
Worked there for 3 years. And Allegheny Construction, Allegheny Millwork recruited me from there to become a senior project manager, to be able to take on more responsibility and manage other mines.
All right, gotcha. And the same question I asked the others, if I may, what is your current political affiliation? Party?
Republican.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Cripps.
One last thing,
Go ahead.
sir, to answer one of your standing questions about the opioid crisis. It's really kind of hit home to myself. My brother, stepbrother, is approximately the same age as I am. Unfortunately, he has spent the last 15 years in federal penitentiary because he had an accident, an automobile accident. It was a rollover accident, hurt his back severely. The doctor put him on pain medication. Well, that pain medication was never really managed. He felt he needed it. He called the doctor. The doctor wrote him another prescription. And that turned into another prescription. And that turned into another prescription. Before I knew it, my brother was addicted to opioids. Trying to help him to reach out to him, he didn't realize that he was addicted. The doctor didn't realize he was addicted. So in my opinion, I feel that we need to develop outreach that will be able to help identify those type things. And because he was addicted, that led to other drugs and other things that caused him to go toward the crime that he did, and not realizing ended up in penitentiary. And, we have waited patiently for him to go through the system, which he has. He's come out. He's recently been released. He's going to the Men of Honor down there, which has a tremendous outreach and ministry of dealing with those who have been addicted to drugs. So I would really like to see that in Rutherford County that we try to set up more and reach out more to identify those that are potentially at risk that may not know that they're at risk, and hopefully be able to monitor the prescriptions that are being written by the doctors and have some type of database that will help identify multiple prescriptions that have been written to an individual to say, hey, maybe we need to look at a different type of pain management and go a different route. So to me, the opioid crisis is a personal issue, and I would like to see more go toward that for the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Beverly, come on up again. The question is, do you feel that Rutherford County lacks in diversity?
Rutherford County is one of the fastest growing counties in our state. Whenever I speak at these schools and I talk to their principals, their student body isn't made up of the same demographics it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. Our student body in our education system is changing, which means our citizens' demographics are changing. That requires Rutherford County to have more diversity to make sure that every single citizen, their interests are represented and that they feel their government is working for them. Because that's the entire reason I'm up here. Government should work for the people, and that's something I feel like I could assist with. So to answer your question, yes, more diversity will be beneficial.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Michael Curtis. How you doing, sir? Thank you for your service.
Sir, thank you, Commissioner.
You're recognized.
First of all, I'd like to thank Chairman Harris for letting me be here tonight, and Mayor Ketron and members of the Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Mike Curtis. I live at 4900 Rucker Christiana Road. I am a 37-year resident of Rutherford County. I started out just south of the Newtown store and the Williams Grocery, and have moved my way a little bit further to the east to District 6 September 15th of 2001. So I've been here a little over 19 years or so, somewhere in that area. I didn't calculate it up. I am married to Amy Curtis, and we have 2 adult children, both who are attending universities here in Tennessee, one at Middle Tennessee State University and in a graduate program with business, and the other one in University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and he is studying physics and astronomy and a double major with classical studies. They are both graduates of Central Magnet School, which is a great program here with the education in Rutherford County. And we're greatly appreciative of living in Rutherford County and having these opportunities for our children, and I'd like to see that continue. I currently work for Rutherford County as the GIS manager. I have been working for Rutherford County nearly 31 years. I started out in the planning department as an assistant planner back in 1990 and moved over to the information technology department in 2005. And there I currently serve as the GIS manager. I graduated from MTSU in 1988 with a Bachelor's of Science, and went to a little bit of postgraduate work at Southeast Missouri State University in GIS. I had to leave that furthering my education at that time due to a injury my mother sustained, and she needed some help at the house, and so I had to do that, and then I eventually became an employee of Rutherford County. I also served as a volunteer firefighter from 1990 to 2012 with the Salem-Blackman Volunteer Fire Department, which is now part of the Rutherford County Fire Rescue. I served with people like the great Tony Snook, who just recently passed away. He was a great friend of mine. And I was an EMT for 8 years, from 1992 to 2000. And I worked not for Rutherford County Ambulance Service, but I worked for a convalescent service here in town, plus I also did part-time work with Bedford County. I know the southern part of the county very well, and also a lot of the county as a whole, since my first 15 years was working as the addressing person for Rutherford County. I've been over all the back roads in this county many times. I think that about familiarizes the rest of y'all with me. If y'all got any questions?
Yes, sir. Any questions? We're going to give you the same questions to give everybody else, so I guess I'll start. Do you feel that Rutherford County lacks in diversity?
Rutherford County, with its growth, there was 260,000 approximately in 2010 to approximately 320 to 330,000 right now. Has attracted a lot of different people from different areas of the world. I have a neighbor 2 doors down from me who is not from this country, but they're very nice folks. And they deserve representation just like everybody else does in this community. And there could always be better diversity. There's always room for improvement.
Good. And what are the biggest issues and challenges facing Rutherford County?
In one word, growth. But to expound upon that, solid waste is a big issue. As all of you all know, you've got an RFP due on the 15th of February, and the current landfill life is estimated at less than 8 years. Some say even less than that. There's going to have to be something done about that, and I'm willing to help take on that. As part of my job, I have actually helped some of you with various tools in that area. Another issue that Rutherford County is facing is sources of viable revenue. The county being a subset of the state is subject to the rules that the state legislature sets, and sometimes that makes things difficult to find ways to fund projects and the budgets here in the county. Another big change that's going to be coming up is this being almost 2021, the census data is going to be coming out, and the reapportionment redistricting process is going to begin. And that is another big challenge for the county. And because of the growth and the areas of Blackman, Christiana, Rockvale, and also within the cities of Murfreesboro, Laverne, and the town of Smyrna, there's going to be some significant changes to how the representation is distributed. And this will be my 4th redistricting process coming up. So I've done and participated in 3 prior to this, so I have a lot of experience in that area. It's going to be requirement to be able to maintain communities of interest, compactness, contiguous districts, and incumbency. Those are all going to be difficulties that are going to be part of the process. That's all part of growth.
Mr. Reed?
Mr. Curtis, you've pretty much have heard what I have got to say, and you being some experience with volunteer fire and whatever, you know you're out there in that district right there. What do you see as far as where we need to go as far as public safety is concerned out there in that area?
The folks at the Christiana Volunteer Fire Department are some great folks.
They are.
And they do a bang-up job, but they are volunteers. And as volunteers, they have a real life and they have jobs, and they can't always be available like a paid department can be. And Rutherford County is slowly moving to a lot of paid departments. It's something I've seen in the last 10 years with Larry Farley being the chief of Rutherford County Fire Rescue. And that may be something we need to be considering in the future.
Cush? Commissioner Rather? Gentlemen, I'm going back. I'm just trying to make sure we get the same questions to every single applicant. So if I call on you and you just tell me goodbye, but go ahead. Commissioner Rather?
Do you intend to run for this position when that seat's open again?
Yes, sir. As a 31-year community servant in multiple aspects, I'm close to retirement, and I want to continue to serve my community, and this would be the next level for me. And yes, sir, I would. And I am a Republican.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman.
Casey Gregory. Welcome, Ms. Gregory. You're recognized. You sure can.
Hey, I feel like I'm
I think
muffled.
We're 6 feet. We're okay.
Yes. Anytime I wear a mask, I have a hard time speaking a lot because I feel like I am being just stifled. So I like to have the entire face moving. So I'm Casey Gregory, and I live in District 6. I grew up in District 6. Some of my favorite childhood memories are my dad putting me and the dogs in the truck and going down to the dump on Bradeville Pike. And now I use that same dump now that we live off of Gumpucket. So really looking forward to, representing that community. I went to Riverdale High School. I graduated from MTSU with a sociology degree and minors in criminology and criminal justice. My father spent 32 years serving at the sheriff's office, and I like to say that I met my husband in jail because I worked at the detention center, and so did my husband, who is now a narcotics detective. I am an account manager at the nonprofit Dispensary of Hope, and we work to get low-income, uninsured people medication access for free. I'm also the board secretary of Crime Free MT, where we try to connect the police and the community and strengthen those relationships. Another area that I'm really passionate about are the police. And I'm also an archery coach. I'm a NASP certified archery coach at Buchanan Elementary. Go Hornets. And that has been a really interesting thing to do, but something that I have learned quickly and have really kind of thrown myself into it. I think that's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to do it just like we have been. Do you feel that Rutherford County lacks in diversity?
So part of my role at Dispensary of Hope, I work with our culture facilitation. So, and one of my biggest things with that position is making sure that everyone's voice is heard. Do I think are we doing a good job with representation? Probably not. Every single resident of Rutherford County should be represented.
Ms. Gregory, what do you feel that are the biggest issues and challenges facing Rutherford County?
Yeah. So echoing a lot of what the other candidates said, our schools, our roads, our community and police, I think it all boils down to, like others have said, the growth in this county. I feel like we've maybe been a little short-sighted with how we're planning. For instance, I know Buchanan High School is set to be built, but not for another 4 or 5 years. And I just don't think that we have thought big enough. We are growing, we are attracting businesses, and more people want to move here because we've got wonderful schools. But we just need to anticipate the growth a little better.
Mr. Reed?
Ms. Gregory, of course, your studies was in criminal justice and things of this type. I don't know if you've had the opportunity, since you decided to run for Park Commissioner, if you've talked to any of the people, say, out towards Fosterville in that direction, about what are their concerns as far as public safety is concerned? What are they looking for? What do you see as some of the things we may be needing to work towards as far as the people are concerned dealing with public safety?
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to talk to anyone, but just for my concerns, I think we really need to focus on community building. You've got folks that are, yes, they're depending on volunteer workers to come put out fires. My dad had a fire in his field and the Kittrell Fire Department came out. But really building that community, getting to know your neighbors. One of my favorite things about living where we do now is the community. We lived in a neighborhood for 7 or 8 years on the other side of town, and I didn't know my neighbors' names. We are friends with our neighbors, and we are further away from them by quite a bit. But our kids go to school together. It's that deep sense of community that I didn't get living in District 19 when I was there, especially with the schools. Miss Witt, the principal at Buchanan Elementary, she's welcomed me with open arms. It's just a different caliber of community out there, and I think we need to build it a little better so we can lean on each other.
Mr. Cush?
Thank you, Chair. And Casey, I did listen to you while I was behind the glass over there. You may have seen me. thank your family for the service to our community and county. And thank you for working for such a noble cause with the Dispensary of Hope. I see that you grew up in District 6 and now you currently live in District 6. As an adult, how long have you lived in District 6?
Yes, so we moved back to District 6 in 2018.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to ask this question like I have to all. For some, this might matter. For some, it makes no difference at all. But may I ask your current political party affiliation?
Libertarian.
Okay. Good enough for me. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Casey, thank you.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
Good job. Commissioner McAdoo. I couldn't hear you, sir.
You're going to run next election.
Oh, Miss Gregory? Sorry. The question is, will you be running in 2022 if you're appointed?
You know, I haven't decided yet. I would love to serve my community in that capacity, but I just haven't made that decision.
Okay. Any other questions? We good? All right, Ms. Gregory, thank you. Greg Harvey. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Greg. How are you?
You're recognized.
Members of the Commission, thank you for having me up here. My name is Greg Harvey. I have worked for the Murfreesboro Water Resources Department in an administrative level for 30 years this coming January. As I said, I have it's been administrative. I have bid projects out. I have reviewed all the projects. I've reviewed a lot of construction drawings. Pretty much any project that has come across in the city of Murfreesboro that is connected to water or sewer has come across my desk. So from that standpoint, I feel like I am capable of this position. As far as some of the things that I feel are, Mr. Curtis unfortunately stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this growth being the primary problem. I know the state legislature has put up obstacles for impact fees and things of that nature. I do feel like there are other issues or other ways that maybe to look at that. I know development happens. Our problem is not so much growth. Our problem is growth that is not controlled and it doesn't pay for itself. I'm a firm believer in pay as you play. That being said, then development should at least contribute. If you've got to build a school for every 1,000 houses, then those 1,000 houses should contribute towards the cost of that school. Development doesn't pay for the extra roads that are needed for the traffic. They just pay for whatever's in front of them. I know that. I've seen that. I know that there are all these other things that are tied to growth that people don't understand, that the more growth you have, the more, not just staff, but you have to have vehicles, and you have to have buildings for those vehicles. You have to have also the maintenance for both vehicles and buildings. If there was more on the front end to go towards the schools and the roads and those impacts, then the taxes that you would normally collect would more than pay for salaries and things of that nature, or at least I feel that way just running some preliminary numbers. I have been served on a finance committee at my church, which is Trinity United Methodist Church. I have served on the Rutherford County's Rabies Control Board back in the early 90s. I have also served on the Beasley Animal Humane Board at about that same time. I worked a lot with Millie Evans, which most of you may remember. I also was treasurer on that for a year. I currently volunteer with Trail Life USA as an adult leader for high school boys and in a Christian environment that we are learning or teaching these young men how to become leaders and such in Christian manners in the outdoors. The growth contributes to a lot of the problems that we're having with schools and things. The growth contributes to the trash, but also bringing it in from several other counties is the main source of that, in my opinion, and it should be dealt with as well. We need to try to focus on Rutherford County. I am from the Donald's Chapel area. My great-great-great-grandfather was W.S. Donald, who donated property to the United Methodist Church for Donald's Chapel. I grew up in the eastern set. I haven't always lived in District 6, but I grew up on the east side of Murfreesboro in that Kittrell-Murray area, all in that area. We lived for a while during the early 90s. We lived over right on Halls Hill Pike. We actually had purchased the David Urey house. Some of y'all may be familiar with that. And we lived there for about 10 years. I actually that was at the time in Stan Vaught's district. And when he vacated that position, I did run for that. As you know, I lost to a gentleman who had one letter difference in his last name from Mr. Vaught. So people thought that they were actually voting for the incumbent who wasn't there. So, as far as diversity goes, we can always use diversity and representation from as many people as we have here. It's welcome. I do think it's needed.
Speak to the microphone.
Sorry, I do think it is needed as far as diversity. There are just a lot of people here now from all over the country and all over the world that were not here when I grew up. But that's great, that's fine. I hope they will be able to step up in the future and have opportunities for representation. As far as running, yes, I do plan on running. As far as being in this community, I built the house. I actually acquired some of the original farm from my grandparents after my great-grandparents deceased. I acquired that in the late 90s and built a house, proceeded to build our house, and we've been there ever since. Most of the people that are in my area have large tracts of farmland, and they have been there multiple generations. So I think that's all I have. I hope I've answered most of the questions. If anybody else is, I know you were talking about safety. You know, I'm in the rural area. I am 2 miles from the county line at Bradable. You know, the sheriff department does a great job. We see them here. My son's actually an explorer at this point in the sheriff's department, so I get some insider information from him. And I know that they seem to know hot spots that the general public don't know, and they put the effort in there. But we could always use more, especially out where we're at. You know, for instance, I know that we have an alarm system on our house, but I also know that by the time, if somebody breaks in, most of the time they're going to be gone before anybody gets there. Now they'll be met with a 90-pound dog, but who doesn't like many people? But and that's mainly for that reason, because he's there when I'm not. So you know, it's not unusual to wake up to a thud at 2 o'clock in the morning where I'm at. The medevac has landed in my field multiple times because I have a very sharp curve on Bradable Pike that people come off this hill very fast and they miss that curve and they end up nose diving over into that field. And so you know, it's there. I do think that I know there was a wreck about a month or so ago down the street. One of the things that I would like to see is the maybe some coordination with Vanderbilt or whoever's running the HVAC or the helicopters. You know, I have no problem with them landing in the field, in my field. It's an open field. There's no power lines there anymore. I got the phone company finally got their stuff out of there, so I have a nice open field. I don't mind them landing there if they need to. I know that was a problem because the last wreck that happened that they needed that, he flew over my house twice before he could find a place to land, and he finally landed down the road a pretty good ways from where the accident was. So, you know, I think that as a community we can work on things like that. Doesn't cost anything, you know, those kind of things, just cooperation and working as a community. I think I've got most everybody's questions.
Any other questions? Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Timothy Holden. Mr. Holden, how are you?
How are you, sir? Commissioners that are here, how are you today?
Doing good, sir. You're recognized. You can start whenever you're ready.
My name is Tim Holden. I live at 5588 Johnson Road, which is a little bit east of Buchanan School. I have lived in this area for well, let's see, we got married. We've been married 38 years, my wife and I, so I started on Big Springs Road. That area came back to Dilton Mankin, and then back to the Cedar Grove Road area. So, been a big part of our life in that community in various locations. Like I said, I'm married. My wife, I have one daughter. She attended Buchanan and then on to high school here in Rutherford County. I attended high school in Rutherford County. Grew up in Murfreesboro City, but moved to the county when we got married. So I totally agree with the young lady that said that Buchanan is a different area. It's not better, it's just different. It's still a rural type area. We still have a sense of rural area there. Now, whether that lasts 5 years or 50 years, I don't know, but we are growing some out there. So, this position here is very, very important. I was friends with Mr. Jernigan for many, many years. Had worked with him on various projects when I was at the school. I was the PTO president. A one-year term lasted 5 years. So just that kind of deal. But worked with him on that, and I always told him I'd never run against him, but I told him if it ever opened up, I would like to try this position out. So my experience with school board, like I said, we worked with them very closely when we were at Buchanan Elementary, my wife and I. And Mr. Swanson was there at that time, and we worked very closely. I was also the athletic fundraiser guy, so we got into washing a bunch of cars and selling a bunch of stuff. So we were very educated in that. So my personal self, I come from, like I said, I've worked in the industry here for 17 years at Molly, then went on to manage my own business. And then sold that business and went to work for various businesses here in this area. I was a manufacturing engineer at Molly, which allowed me to do a lot of budgeting, as some of your questions were. And so with that being said, you want me to proceed on with answering your questions? I just got them here in order. Solid waste.
Sir, however you like to do it.
All right. Solid waste
Would you like us to ask you a question now, or do you want to continue with your...
Matter. However you feel.
You have the floor, sir.
Okay, let me finish this, then we'll come back.
Do whatever you need to do.
I'll put it off as long as I can. No. My 3 areas are actually 4. It's very similar to what the other candidates or the other people applying said. Solid waste is that landfill, which I'm not sure how the contract reads, but we get the fill for the landfill, even though I don't think it belongs to us anymore. But I think our solid waste, we're going to have to rely on some technology to break that cycle of buying more trucks and more dumpsters. That's very risky. That's very dangerous to have those on the road, and it's very expensive. I did some research. When I was at Molly, we had a problem with our garbage, and we were creating so much they couldn't get it changed out in an efficient manner. So we put in a shredder, which will give us 30% reduction of solid waste by putting in shredders. Now, I don't have the numbers to run as far as what that really means, but I do know that all the people that make shredders said, okay, you can look at it 2 ways. You'll get a 30% waste reduction now, or 30% more capacity than you had, either way. So just things like that to look at. Technology is going to be important. Whether we incinerate, whether we make mulch out of it, once you get it in this state, you can use it for mulch. So solid waste looks like small wins and no big easy button. I don't think there's an easy button out there we can push to solve our solid waste problem. Okay, schools and education. I've never understood, and there's probably a rule why they haven't done it, is to go ahead and shell out a school 20% bigger with the outside and go back and build the inside out when you need it. Everything's there. Everything is there. All the construction equipment, everything's there. If you just want to build it 20% bigger on the outside, then go back in and finish at 20%. I was in in one of the school meetings, you know, and when we were looking at Buchanan, and they were talking about adding a trailer park at the Buchanan exit. A lot of people, you know, 0.25 students per trailer is what they were saying. I don't know where they got their data, but my data didn't show that. And the guy said, well, don't worry about schools. We'll build schools when we need schools. I said, it's too late to build schools when you need schools. So I think we got to look at that as well. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if TCA allows it. But you have an inside finish only. You could turn them very quickly. There's always been a thick line between education and the private sector. There's always been a very definitive line there. And I think we need to thin that line out a little bit, maybe partner with some of these companies that can help us out, do some things, put some technology in school. I ran for school board. Well, Miss Veronica was on there too. We ran, I guess, against each other, you could say that, but we were on the ballot. And one of my goals at that time was build a comprehensive vocational high school, like a central magnet school, where make it really high tech. I come from a technology type background. That's why that's so near and dear to me. I think there's a lot of good, you were talking about bringing companies, good companies with good paying jobs. You have a high school that is all high tech. You'll bring the companies, they'll come. So some of my experience with working with school board, I was one of the founding members on a board in Nashville. Actually, no, it was in Murfreesboro. But we brought mechatronics to Oakland High School. Worked with Mr. Spurlock. Mr. Ketron was the state on there. And we were able to bring that mechatronics program to Oakland. We were also able to create the vocational technical school, help create the VOTEC partnership between Nissan and them now, which if you go by Nissan, on the left is a very high-tech technical school. That was created by a private partnership between state and industry. So I think we could do that on a local level as well. Budgeting, I worked for Molly for 17 years, worked my own business. I always had a program at Molly I would teach to everybody that worked for me. It's called Focus on Your Customer. You got to decide who your customer is. Our customers are citizens of Rutherford County. So you've got to focus on those customers. You've got to be able to take the money you get and use it the most effective way you can to focus on those customers. And that's the citizens of Rutherford County. They're not all going to be happy. They're not all going to be mad. But for the greater good, you got to look at. And let's see what else was effective.
Mr. Holden?
Yes.
I want to get to specific questions. Can you please tell me how you feel as far as diversity in Rutherford County?
Well, I think diversity can always be improved. I don't know where we are right now because I don't know the numbers. I would say we were probably low on minorities in most places. I don't know that, but I'd say we were. But I think it's something we've always got to be aware of and pick the people that are the best candidates. Just if they're the best candidates, give everybody a choice and pick the people that are the best candidates.
Okay. I want to go through this. You just about answered every question.
Well, so I tried to set it up that way.
Absolutely, that's fine. I'll go ahead and, so will you run again if you're appointed to this position?
Sir, I will run again. Yes.
And what is your party affiliation?
Republican.
Okay. Any other questions? Done? Mr. Holden, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Did you?
Oh, okay. Mr. P., one thing, you asked about safety in our area. We need a bridge at Buchanan exit. I'd throw it in there. So, but anyway, thank y'all very much.
Thank you. John Miller. Welcome, Mr. Miller. You had the floor.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Chair Harris and Mayor, distinguished. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to get started. My name's Patrick Miller. I go by Patrick. John's my given name from my parents. I live on Miller Road. I was born and raised in District 6. My parents lived on Ridley Earth, so I'm about 3 football fields actually from where I was born and raised. I'm 46, so I've spent a little time out there. Married my wife Shayna. We have 2 wonderful twin boys, Walt and Cooper. Like I said, we've got a lot of time, effort invested there. I went to Buchanan, then I went to Riverdale, went to Votech to where I could do my emergency services. I've worked for Rutherford County now since 2000, so I'm entering my 21st year as a paramedic. See if I can knock some of these questions out for you guys. Last time I called Mr. Joe Frank because I grew up playing softball out there and I've known him my whole life. And I asked him if he was running and he said, yes, I plan on running at least one more time. I said, okay. Out of respect for my elders, I said I will wait till 2022. But I told him that I would run in 2022. So I am a Republican. As far as public safety, it's near and dear great to my heart. I actually work at Manchester Highway Station, which is in District 6. We get pulled to town a lot because Murfreesboro gets so busy. As you know, we make sure that we get all areas covered. But that's a big thing when all my friends and family, when I have to come to town, that leaves that area open. So that's something that I'm really near and dear to on my heart. I'll let you catch me up. As far as diversity, I like they said, I don't know the numbers either, but I think we can always use room for improvement. In my line of work, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm going to take care of you. And I think that's how the commissioner needs to look at their district and the people of their district. It doesn't matter where you are, what your pay is, your ability to pay, what color, race, creed, ethnic, who you care about. You have to take care of everybody in your district along with everybody in this county to make it work. What else? Is that it?
I believe you answered it.
I get everybody?
Safety, will you run if you're appointed in 2 years?
Yes, sir, I do. Like I said, I'd plan on running anyway in 2022.
All right.
So, get this knocked out short and sweet. I know y'all ready to go home.
Absolutely not.
And I got to go back to work, so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, that concludes all of our applicants. As far as procedure, Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion for how we proceed forward. So I move that we nominate all 8 applicants and that 4 rounds of voting occur. In the first round, each member will vote for 4 candidates, with the 4 candidates receiving the most votes advancing to round 2. In round 2, each member will vote for 3 candidates, with the 3 candidates receiving the most votes advancing to round 3. In round 3, each member will vote for 2 candidates, with the 2 candidates receiving the most votes advancing to round 4. In round 4, each member will vote for 1 candidate, with the candidate receiving the most votes to be presented as the steering committee's recommendation at the December County Commission meeting. In the event of a tie in any round that causes there to be 1 too many candidates to move on to the next round, Each member would vote for one of the candidates, with the candidate receiving the most votes advancing. And after the first 2 rounds, committee members would have an opportunity to ask questions to the remaining 3 candidates. So that is my motion.
Did all y'all hear that? We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Let's reduce that to 3 instead of 4. Can we do that? We
Mr.
can do pretty well
Stevens?
whatever we feel like we can.
Well, if he makes that.
Well, there's a motion on the floor, so
Okay.
He amends it.
you can amend it.
Okay, I'd like to amend it to 3 instead of 4, Robert, if that's agreeable with you.
Second.
That'll work. That's fine.
Okay, we have an amendment. First, we're going to vote on the amendment, and then we'll, do I have a second on the amendment?
Was there a second on the first one?
Let me back up. We have a motion. Was there a second on that motion?
For clarification, if I second the original motion, we still have the opportunity for amendment.
When you second it, we have a motion with Mr. Stevens, then we amend it. We're going to vote on the amendment, and then back to the...
I will second Commissioner Stevens' original motion.
Mr. Cush, second Commissioner Stevens' motion. We have an amendment. Do we have a second on the amendment? We do. Commissioner McAdoo?
We have to vote on the amendment first, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We're voting on the amendment. The amendment states that we'll have 3 rounds instead of 4. Now, let me be specific here. So when we have 3 rounds here, we're voting on how many on your 3rd round? 3 people?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
On the first round, you want 3 people, right?
All the way around. You know, the first round would be voting for 3 people. That's what my amendment is, instead of 4 people.
Okay.
Okay, does everybody understand that?
3, 2, 1.
Instead of 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's what the amendment is.
So the first round will be 3, second round be 2, third round be 1.
Correct.
All right. Does everybody understand that? We have a second with Commissioner McAdoo, and let's vote.
Mr. Harris, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I believe Mr. Stevens had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
When would the time for questions be? Would that be for the final 3 or for the final 2?
I suggest that we have questions after round 2. That's me. I tell you what, we can ask questions either round.
I agree. I think that'll expedite matters also.
Okay. Let's make sure everybody's on the same path here. So, Commissioner Stevens, unless you make an amendment, we can ask questions each round.
Okay.
Okay. So we have an amendment. We have a second. Let's vote on the amendment first.
Mr. Cush?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. McAdoo? Yes. Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Now we're going back to the original motion, amended motion.
Commissioner McAdoo? Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Cush?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. So we have the format. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. I want everybody to look at your notes, and then we'll come back and we'll vote. So we're going to be adjourned for 5 minutes and come back at 7:19, make it 6 minutes. The steering committee is now back in session. We have a motion passed where we will be voting on 3 applicants to go to the next round. This is how it will work. Your name will be called and you will give 3 names. And you have to say them, we have to be for the record. So you will be asked for 3 names and then we'll go from there. Everybody understood? All right, Rachel, go ahead.
Mr. Cush?
Okay. In no particular order, I have Buchanan, Harvey, and Holden.
You say Holden?
Correct.
Okay.
The Buchanan, Harvey, and Holden. Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Beverly, Buchanan, and Cripps.
Beverly, Buchanan, Cripps, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner McAdoo.
Buchanan, Chris, Curtis.
Buchanan, Cripps, Curtis. Commissioner Rather.
Alphabetical order, Beverly, Buchanan, Miller.
Beverly, Buchanan, what was your last one, I'm sorry?
Miller.
Miller. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Beverly, Curtis, and Miller.
Beverly, Curtis, Miller. Commissioner Reed.
Buchanan, Cripps, and Harvey.
Buchanan, Cripps, Harvey. And Chairman Harris.
Beverly, Buchanan, and Cripps.
Beverly, Buchanan, and Cripps.
Okay. Tally the votes. The three that will be going to the next round is Jonathan Beverly, Veronica Buchanan, and Paul Cripps. I want to thank everyone who applied for this position. I hope that you continue to stay active in your local government. I also want you to understand that the steering committee can recommend, and that's what we're going to do, but a commissioner with a second can nominate you on the floor. And so you can still be brought up on the floor for a vote.
Point of clarification, when it comes to nominations on the floor, it doesn't require a second at the county commission meeting.
I have been corrected. You don't need a second. So you need a commissioner to nominate you, which he by law can do, and be brought to the floor for a vote. All right. We will now go to round two, and we are voting for two people. If any of you would like to ask questions of these three, we will allow them to come up here and ask questions. Mr. Beverly, you don't mind coming up, do you? Congratulations on making the first round, sir.
Thank you, sir.
My question to you is this. I had said at the beginning of this meeting that there's a problem with the rising deaths of opioids. What do you feel that this county can do to help with this problem?
Well, it might be assumed that just due to my position, I think enforcement is the only option, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We have an opening coming up with Judge Bragg's retirement for the 16th Judicial District that will shape how we respond in a judicial manner. Oftentimes, people who are dealing with this opioid crisis come into contact with law enforcement. And as it was pointed out earlier, these are people who you thought would start off as drug addicts. They got them from doctors, and it turned worse and worse and worse, and their family are reaching out for help. With the appointment from Governor Lee for Judge Bragg's position in the subsequent election, we have an opportunity to shape alternative sentencing. That through the General Sessions Drug Court and Mental Health Court, we can address the root of this problem and get rid of strict incarceration or probation for drug offenses and get people who are suffering from the opioid crisis the assistance they need.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Rather?
Mr. Beverly, as a citizen in that district, how have you or have you had the opportunity, if you have, how have you, just as a citizen, helped others in the district? Maybe the guy that lives behind you, the guy across the street. Have you already, have you had the opportunity to help out your neighbors currently?
Well, I'd like to point that out specifically. I was asked earlier, how long have I lived in this district? And I had the least amount of time than anyone sitting out there. I'll be the first to admit, it's 6 months. My wife and I saved and worked hard to purchase our home. The largest investment anyone can ever make. And we decided to go to District 6 with the intention of staying in that home because that is what we valued for our childhood and that's what we wanted for our children. I can tell you, I worked numerous overdoses. Sometimes those resulted in an arrest, sometimes they did not. Those people were from all over the county. One thing about Rutherford County, we're intertwined. That person has a connection to my district in one way or the other, through some degree of connection. So when I say, I can't give you specific examples, but I know without a doubt in my 7 years, in the amount of Narcan that I have administered, or the amount of times I've dealt with someone for an alternate sentencing, that it has affected the citizens of my district, and I will continue to do so because that's a passion of mine, because it's a problem we all are facing.
Everybody good?
Thank you.
Questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Beverly.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Buchanan, can you please come up? Thank you. Ms. Buchanan, the question is, with the rising numbers in the opioid epidemic, what do you feel that this county can do?
I think we can expand the drug court, and I think we need to offer more programs for families because they're the ones that suffer along with the people that's on the drugs.
Mr. Rather?
Same question. Do I need to repeat it? You've been in that district how many every years? We all as citizens have opportunities to help others around us, whether we hold public office or not. I don't know how to ask this. How often or what have you done to help others just as a citizen in your district over the years?
Volunteering, serving. I've, an example, at one, I volunteered to help at the Buchanan School. I would go over there and take supplies. I took some supplies over there. Just anything I can do for my community because I believe in it. That's why I'm here, because I love my community. Anything I can do, I'm there. If somebody asks me to come do something for the community, I'm going to be there. I'm dedicated. I'm on top of what I do. My record speaks for me because I'm a community servant. I've volunteered for community helpers forever and a day, just helping people that can't pay their light bill, their medicines for the elderly. I've done all of that. So,
any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Buchanan. Mr. Cripps? And Mr. Beverly, Ms. Buchanan, and Mr. Cripps, we probably will ask some more questions, all right? Just letting you know. The question is, based on the numbers that we had, and I kind of know where you stand because you kind of alluded to it earlier, With the growing numbers, alarming growing numbers of the opioid epidemic, how can we as a county address this problem?
Well, from my earlier statement about that being a personal issue, I think that having, as Veronica pointed out, maybe, and the other candidate here, is having a way that family members can reach out and help their loved ones. Usually we're the first one to see the person that's in the situation. They're not going to see that they're in the situation. The family members that are around them and love them and care for them can see that they're struggling. And having a way that a program that the family member can reach out as an advocate for the person that's struggling and make it to where it's more accessible and easier to reach out as an advocate on behalf of those that are struggling and to help get them into a program before they have to reach the stage. Once they reach law enforcement, at that point it's usually gone too far. So having that intermediate program to be able to reach out as a family member, as an advocate for those that are struggling, to me would be a very useful thing that we could have in the county.
Okay. Commissioner Rutherford?
The years you've been in that district, have you had opportunities to help others in the district, in your community, the neighbors, and how so have you done that?
Man, I just couldn't wait. I heard you ask the other two candidates that question, and I just been sitting back there like waiting for my opportunity to get up here. I have served my community in the 15 years that I've been there. One of my things that I got into at a very young age was baseball umpiring, and I started out in Little League, where it's a volunteer thing. Well, over 19 years in baseball umpiring, I worked my way up to the NCAA level, which is, you know, when you're at that level, it's a whole different ball game. And you've always heard the term, don't forget where you came from. Well, living right next to Barfield Park over there with those young kids wanting to learn the game of baseball, I went over and offered to umpire, even though I was at a much higher level, with those guys that are just learning out, coach pitch and T-ball or whatnot. And I did that for several years. Just to be able to help train those that are getting to the level that I was already umpiring at. As well as there at Barfield Park, when my daughter was going to Christiana School, my baseball assigner, Ken Norfleet, that's been in the community for quite some time, I said, man, I want to send me down to Barfield Middle, or to the Cougars down there, Christiana Middle. Once again, I went down and helped umpire as many games as I could for them. As my daughter went to that school, we participated in all the functions that the school offered. When the tornadoes of 2010 came through the area, there was a lot of my friends and neighbors in my community that had downed trees or whatnot. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not a politician, I'm a country boy. And I grew up, you know, as a young kid going out in the woods and cutting trees and preparing for the winter for our family by having firewood. My first thought was, man, a lot of these people don't have a chainsaw or even know how to use one. First thing I did was got my gas can and my chainsaw, and I went through my neighborhood, offered to help cut trees and move brush off of people's houses. One of my neighbors that I don't even know, a couple streets down, had a tree on his vehicle. You know, helping to cut that off to where he could get, you know, try to get to his personal effects and stuff in there. So being a part of my community is extremely important to me. I've got relatives that, when somebody mentioned Fostersville, I didn't even think about, you know, I've got an aunt that lives down there. And when we go down, we try to go to the Moon Pie Festival and be a part of that. But serving in my community is just one of the things that I'm passionate about.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right, gentlemen, we're voting for two.
Commissioner Reed,
Veronica Buchanan, Paul Cripps.
Commissioner Johnson,
Beverly and Cripps.
Commissioner Rather,
Buchanan and Cripp.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Stevens,
Beverly and Buchanan.
Commissioner Cush,
Buchanan and Cripps, I'm sorry.
Chairman Harris.
Buchanan and Cripps. Mr. Beverly, you're an outstanding young man. I wish you luck. Like I said, you could still be brought up to the board, up to the commission. But I want to appreciate you coming forth. I enjoyed your presentation, and I wish you every bit of luck as anything. All right, gentlemen. We have Veronica Buchanan and Paul Cripps to the next round. We're now voting for one. Before I get to this vote, is there any questions you want of these two applicants? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Phillips. Could I be recognized?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Phillips.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I don't want to be out of order. My calculation of that last vote indicates that Buchanan and Cripps both got an equal number of votes. I consider both of those to be outstanding candidates. And as a commissioner, not a member of the steering committee, I'd like a choice versus just one person. And I'd like for the steering committee to consider forwarding both of these people to the full commission so that the full commission could make that decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Johnson?
I would move for a motion to do that, to submit both of these names to the full commission and let the full commission vote on it.
So your motion is to advance both
Correct.
candidates to the county commission floor.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All right, go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Cush,
No.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
No.
Chairman Harris.
No. All right, gentlemen, so we're voting for one.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cush?
question for you.
Mr. Chairman Cush.
Mr. Chairman Harris. Don't know if this would be out of order, if you would consider this question. There are two people in the audience that are here to show support for one of these candidates. One of them is a city councilman for the city of Murfreesboro. I don't know if you would entertain any comments from the floor at this point, but we have two individuals that we're here to show support. So just throwing that out there if you would be.
No, I have absolutely no problem with that. I think this is a very major decision, and we should look at every avenue. Do you have somebody in particular in mind that would like to speak on one of the applicants? One of the candidates, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm sorry to interrupt, this is Nick over here.
Yes.
Because we're taking comments from the floor, you may want to do a motion to suspend the rules to allow that to occur.
Thank you, Nick. Well, let me make a motion to suspend the rules. Is that your motion?
You made the motion.
Mike, motion to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Second? Second. All right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Stevens.
Yes, Mr. Stevens.
I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but it's not fair to the other applicants that didn't get somebody to come and speak on their behalf, and that wasn't part of the original procedure that we adopted. So I'm not sure that this is a good idea.
Well, Commissioner Stevens, actually, I see your point. However, it is two applicants, the last two, and unless there's objection, I have no problem with it, but if there is objection, please let me know.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection to it, and I think we may need to be just as open-minded as we possibly can, because each one of us are only one of 21. So we're going to have to work with whoever's nominated and elected. So I don't have any problem with it at all.
Okay, I tell you, go ahead, Commissioner McAdoo, Mr. Chairman.
I myself have a problem with it because this should have been presented at the beginning with all 8 candidates. Who knows? One of the 8 candidates that I didn't vote for may have had 20 people out in that audience that if they were able to speak may have changed my mind. Making rules as we go along is fine, but we did not make the rule and publicize the rule that you bring somebody come up here to voice their opinion on a candidate. Now, if they feel like they need to voice their opinion on a candidate, they can do it at the full commissioner meeting. They can get a commissioner to nominate an individual, and we can suspend the rule and have how many we want to speak. But just to wait until we get down to 2 candidates, and then you holler, we want to have people to speak from the audience on those 2 candidates, I don't think it's fair.
Mr. Harris, if I may, just looking at this and hearing this discussion in terms of fairness and equitableness as this process goes on, I would echo the sentiment from Mr. McAdoo from a legal perspective. It's probably a better position to not allow at this point in the proceedings outside comments to influence the decision since the procedure has already gone this far.
I agree. I agree. We're not going to have anybody come up, and we're going to go. Commissioner Cush, go ahead.
I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay. Motion is withdrawn.
I'll withdraw my second.
And second's been withdrawn. All right, gentlemen, we're voting for one.
Mr. Cush,
Buchanan.
Commissioner Stevens,
Buchanan.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Buchanan.
Commissioner Johnson,
Buchanan.
Commissioner Reed,
Buchanan.
Chairman Harris.
Cripps. Ms. Buchanan, congratulations. You're the recommendation of the steering committee. You will be up for a vote next Thursday, and we wish you luck. All right, gentlemen. Is there any other business? Since there is none, this meeting is adjourned.